Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because, well, we are looking at something truly monumental. We're going to explore the ancient texts that literally laid the philosophical and geopolitical foundations of the East. We're talking about massive, ancient frameworks of order and chaos that are still actively shaping the world today. So if you've ever been fascinated by how epic storytelling can literally build a civilization from the ground up, you are definitely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because the number 100,000 is just staggering. That is the number of verses in the Mahabharata. To put that sheer scale into perspective for a second, this single text is roughly 7 times larger than Homer's Iliad and Odyssey combined. It's the largest epic in human history. But it makes you wonder, why did ancient India need a text this massive? What were they trying to organize? Or maybe more accurately, what were they trying to control? Well, to understand these massive texts, we first have to understand the incredibly chaotic historical stage that necessitated them.
Part 1. The Volatile Foundation. Ancient India's Vedic Era.
Let's look at how this builds chronologically. Starting right around 1500 BC, we see the structural decline of the ancient Indus Valley civilization. Following this, Indo-Aryan populations began these intense migrations toward the fertile plains of the Ganges River. And this wasn't just a peaceful settling down, it was an era of intense, gritty transition. They were systematically clearing dense, tropical wilderness to build large, highly fortified kingdoms known as Mahajanapadas. These kingdoms immediately became the central arenas for volatile dynastic disputes and really complex geopolitical alliances. The actual geopolitical events of these epics stem from this chaotic 2nd millennium BC, but it wasn't until between the 5th and 4th centuries BC that these monumental, orally transmitted accounts were systematically synthesized, structured, and finally recorded in Sanskrit, the classical and sacred language of India.
Now, this era didn't just build physical kingdoms, it solidified a rigid social stratification, the Varnas, or caste hierarchy. At the absolute peak of this social pyramid sat the Brahmins. These were your priests, scholars, and strategists. And right alongside them were the Kshatriyas, the kings, executives, and warriors. So the really crucial takeaway here is that these epics weren't just entertaining campfire stories. The literature of this period directly mirrored this hierarchy. These texts functioned as a massive functional executive playbook. They were explicitly designed to train this specific ruling class and to legitimize a system of sacred governance during an incredibly unstable time. And out of this intense intellectual ferment and dynastic instability emerged 2 absolute masterpieces.
Part 2. The Twin Pillars. The Monumental Sanskrit Epics.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the perfect contrast between 2 totally distinct approaches to restoring order. On the left, we've got the Mahabharata, attributed to the sage Vyasa. It chronicles the Kurukshetra War, which is this highly destructive, cataclysmic succession dispute for the throne of Hastinapura between 2 factions of cousins, the 5 virtuous Pandavas and the 100 unyielding Kauravas. It is messy, it forces divine intervention, and it pushes literally every single warrior to their absolute ethical limits. It's essentially an operational compendium of leadership ethics and cosmic law. Then, on the right side, we have the Ramayana, attributed to the poet Valmiki. This one is a much more concise, linear narrative at 24,000 verses. It follows Prince Rama, an earthly incarnation of the deity Vishnu, who is unjustly exiled. When his wife Sita is abducted by the powerful 10-headed demon king Ravana, Rama builds this strategic alliance with an army of sacred Veneras, led by the fiercely loyal Hanuman, to cross the ocean and dismantle a hostile regime. It's a laser-focused study on devotion, marital fidelity, and absolute moral rectitude under extreme pressure. So while the plots of a messy civil war and a linear rescue mission are wildly different, both of these texts share an absolute thematic anchor.
Which brings us to Part 3, the Cosmic Code, the framework of Dharma and the Bhagavad Gita.
That shared anchor? It's Dharma. Dharma is the structural law governing cosmic order. It dictates moral rectitude and the execution of personal duty based entirely on your position and societal role. The narrative focus in both of these epics completely rejects personal desire. Instead, Dharma dictates the immense, often agonizing personal sacrifices a leader must accept to maintain systemic equilibrium in the universe. It is the ultimate cosmic code of duty.
I want you to really pause and think about this for a second. Would you fight and destroy your own family and mentors to maintain cosmic order? This isn't just a hypothetical thought experiment. This is the exact situation faced by the elite warrior Arjuna in the Mahabharata. On the precipice of a grand, cataclysmic battle, he looks across the battlefield and sees his own relatives and revered mentors, and he experiences severe cognitive paralysis. He completely breaks down. Because how can destroying his own blood possibly be the right thing to do?
And this brilliantly illustrates the context for India's most celebrated sacred text, the Bhagavad Gita, or the Song of the Divine, which is embedded right in the middle of the Mahabharata. You see, Arjuna's charioteer is actually the deity Krishna in disguise. Seeing Arjuna's paralysis, Krishna literally suspends time to deliver a profound philosophical discourse. He details the immortality of the soul, explaining that the physical body is temporary. The central takeaway here is that Arjuna must execute his duty, his dharma, as a warrior, completely without ego or emotional attachment to the fruits of victory. He has to fight not out of hatred or desire to win, but simply because it is his systemic role to uphold the cosmic order. But of course, these aren't just fascinating stories from thousands of years ago.
Part 4. A living cultural legacy. Order versus chaos in the modern era. Let's transition to the modern day. The source material describes a world where virtuous characters are frequently forced into calculated deceptions for a macro-systemic good, and antagonists often display profound moments of honor. Notice how this sophisticated gray area ethics proves that the boundary between order and chaos is rarely just a simple binary. In fact, these ancient texts entirely anticipate the psychological depth of the modern long-form prestige storytelling we all binge today. The moral dilemmas faced by Arjuna or Rama are the exact same complex leadership matrices we find ourselves untangling in the modern world.
But it goes far beyond modern storytelling. Unlike the Epic of Gilgamesh or the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which belonged to ancient civilizations that eventually faded from the geopolitical stage, the Indian epics remain vibrant and fully active today. Characters like Rama, Sita, Krishna, and Hanuman aren't just literary figures, they are actively revered deities. Their stories shape massive national festivals such as Diwali. We are looking at frameworks that profoundly shape the moral landscape and the modern socio-political identity of India. These are absolutely not dead relics. They are the living, breathing identity of a modern global superpower.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The epics of ancient India were designed to answer massive civilization-level crises, but they actually scale all the way down to the individual. When you are faced with your own moments of systemic chaos, whether that's in your career, your family, or your community, where do you draw the line between your personal desires and your duty to order? Will you follow your ego, or will you execute your dharma? Thank you so much for exploring these monumental texts with me today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.